know what really frosts my snowblower? The Winter Olympics being in Italy. Great. Wonderful country. Pasta, gondolas, dramatic hand gestures. I love it, but it's 6 hours ahead of us. So by the time I get home from work, loosen my tie, if I actually wore one, and fire up the TV to watch Team USA chase Olympic glory, it's over. All of it. Every jump, spin, and triple Lindy with a twist. Done. Wrapped up, medals handed out, national anthem played. They're probably halfway through a second bottle of wine over there by the time I see it. Meanwhile, I got to sit on my couch and pretend I don't already know who won because the entire internet shoved it in my face at 1:37 p.m. I mean, you can't avoid it. I open my phone to check the weather. Bam! USA wins gold. I check email. Bam! American skier stuns world. Look, I just want to know if it's going to snow, and instead I get the medal count and 3 slow-motion replays. So now I'm supposed to watch it in prime time. Prime time? It's not prime time. It's rerun time. I'm watching a downhill race like it's live, but I already know that Pete from Vermont clipped a gate and finished 4th. There's no suspense. The announcer's yelling, "This could be history!" And I'm yelling, "It was history 12 hours ago, Gary." It wasn't like this back in my day. I remember being a 15-year-old kid in 1976 watching Austrian Franz Klammer tear down the mountain at the games in Innsbruck. I was glued to the television. Glued! I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't even get up for a sandwich. He's flying down the mountain, arms flailing, skis bouncing like they're attached with duct tape, and I'm thinking, this is it. This is happening right now. Well, it turns out it happened hours earlier, but I had no idea. None. And that was beautiful. That was magic. I thought the entire planet was holding its breath at the same second I was. Now, the planet's already exhaled, written 14 think pieces, posted 600 memes, and argued about the judging before I even find the damn remote. And don't get me started on the spoiler alerts. Spoiler alert, it's the Olympics. It's not a mystery novel. The whole point is not knowing who wins before they do. Back then, when Klammer crossed that finish line and the crowd exploded in his home country, it felt like I was right there in Austria with him. Now I feel like I'm watching a historical documentary narrated by a guy who's pretending he doesn't have Wi-Fi. So yeah, go Team USA, I'll cheer, I'll clap, I'll act surprised. But deep down, I'll forever miss being that 15-year-old kid thinking the world was unfolding right in front of me, even if it wasn't. So if anybody needs me, I'm turning my phone off at noon and I'm yelling at the cloud. All right, let's start the damn show. Well, greetings and salutations and welcome once again to the Newsman Weekly Podcast. Holy crap, episode number 85. Good morning, gentlemen. It's going to be a hell of a week. Speaking of hell, how the hell was your weekend, Zach Heiser and Hayden Gray?
Hey, Carl, maybe if you can still watch the Olympics at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sure the commissioners' meetings happen in the morning.
I did watch both of the USA men's hockey teams Saturday and Sunday because they played at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was home. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you a question. If you had to watch the Super Bowl 8 hours later and you know it's on tape and you already know who won, do you watch it the same way?
No, I sure wouldn't.
Yeah, and that's what's happened to my love for the Olympics thanks to the goddamn internet.
Yeah.
And a time difference. Every Olympics should be held in the Eastern time zone in the United States. Italy don't need it. Germany don't need it. They all need to be in Lake Placid, New York, or Atlanta, Georgia, so they're on the same time I am.
Spoken like a true patriot.
That's right. America, damn it. All right. So what did you guys do this weekend? I did see some pictures, but I'll leave it to you guys to describe.
Oh, some pictures. Well, I went to Snow Trails Friday night.
Saw those, yes.
Saturday was Valentine's Day.
You know, I follow your entire life through social media.
Yes, just on the weekends, though.
You're not that you posted, but your lovely wife loves to post a good picture.
She does. Yeah. So you already know. You already know what I did. You may not know is I was so hungover yesterday from a Valentine's Day dinner party where I ended up going to the Fox at midnight and then ended up karaokeing in some guy's living room in Woodland until like 3 a.m.
What time were the authorities called?
Oh, I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I was blacked out at that point.
So were you still wearing your tux?
Yeah. Still,
Back
the
with the
tux was still looking-
Yeah, hanging out with
still
the
looking
hoi
strong.
polloi.
I know. Well, I don't know.
Well, one of
What
the
are you gonna do?
pictures I saw you and the
Sure,
boss, and I'm thinking, wow,
Yeah,
look at Heiser hobnobbing with the boss.
we were.
Yeah.
We were.
He was wearing a tux.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about Larry Phillips. I've never seen
No,
Larry.
we're
in
talking
tux.
about the big boss.
The big boss.
Jay.
Yeah, already.
Not Carl.
No, Carl. I didn't see Carl.
Larry's
on
wearing a
any of the
tux in his
pictures.
picture, right? I think his author picture. I don't know.
Oh, all
It's the only time.
All I know is I could tell Heiser was feeling well
Mhm.
in a couple of those photos. And
It was. Yeah, I lived a couple lives this
so,
weekend.
what is your 3 a.m. living room karaoke go-to?
I did Volcano by Jimmy Buffett. You
Hey,
were in the crowd.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
all right.
Good one.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good
I
call.
think someone attempted Mariah Carey.
Oh,
Well, see, the thing is, at 3 o'clock in the morning in a living room,
Yeah.
if you're actually
Yeah, true.
doing it,
Take risks,
you
huh?
are too wasted to care.
You're winning if you're doing it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, I haven't been up at 3. I haven't been up till 3 a.m. since I was 12. I think.
Hey, you've
so.
been up at 3 a.m. to get up for the day.
Exactly.
yeah. That's the opposite.
What about you, Hayden? I don't think you were out partying this weekend. What was your weekend like?
Often not, Carl. I mean, Friday evening, I was still working Friday evening. Didn't do anything too crazy. Went over to a coffee shop in Plymouth on Saturday, though. Got away from the sun for a little bit. Took the wife to go get coffee and went to the coffee house in Plymouth, which opened like half a year ago.
I do follow you on social.
Yeah.
Actually, your wife
Yeah.
posted
Yeah, you
lovely
saw that.
photos of the coffee date and
I
your
certainly don't date those.
your wonderful young son with a giant cookie in
Yeah.
his hand.
Yep.
How long did that sugar buzz last?
He still has like half the cookie. Didn't want to eat it all in one go.
Well,
but,
good for him. Good for him.
But yeah, did try to watch. Saw some more curling highlights. I know we talked about that last week on the podcast. Some of the Olympics.
Yeah,
But
once hockey started,
I know
I
you
can't
gave up
try to
on
talk
curling.
curling again.
I
It
know,
was a
but it's
disaster.
great.
It's
great.
gonna come down to the United States and Canada in the gold medal game
In hockey?
And,
Yeah.
and we're gonna have to play the best game they've ever played, and the Kachuk brothers are gonna have to thump a couple of Canadians on the ice, and that's the only way the U.S. has got a chance to win this because Canada is just really, really good.
Is there a third team in the running? Is Germany?
Not U.S. smoked Germany. I don't think Germany's got some good NHL players. They got Draisaitl. They got guys like that.
Yeah.
They have some good individual players, but no, I don't see anybody. If the U.S. plays,
They're like
its
a
game,
Russian team or anything.
No, there's no Russian team at all. They're not allowed.
Yeah.
They've been
I
banned.
don't know, man.
What are their athletes called? They're just like it's
Well, they have some individual athletes. They're
Yeah.
called like non-aligned.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but they don't have a non-aligned Russian hockey team. So yeah, there's no Russian.
It had to be asked, Carl.
It's coming down unless the U.S. somehow makes a mistake and plays their own goalkeeper again, like they did against Norway or Denmark, whoever the hell it was, one of those teams. When we fell behind 2-1, and the goalkeeper gave up a shot from the blue line that like he never saw it. It's just amazing to me. But yeah, as long as they play their game, it'll be USA Canada next Sunday or this Sunday coming up for the gold medal.
They're
game.
probably playing right now. You're missing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you probably
It's a week behind.
And I'm a week. Thank you, Italy. Thank you for that. All right, ladies and gents, and you frozen idiots that are still digging out a little bit. Fact is, this show should have been canceled after episode 3 and a single angry carrier pigeon note from management. Well, fact check, we don't have any management. We're still doing this. 84 episodes later, you degenerates keep coming back for headlines, rants, and God knows what else. We're thankful, we're confused, and we're calling your therapist. And if you're young, we're also calling your parents. This audience is growing faster than a snowplow with road rage. WTF? Can I say that? WTF?
You can say whatever you want. This is your show, Carl.
Okay. Where did you all come from, growth? Masochists, procrastinators, cult members, who cares? You're our people. Bless your trash taste. Special shout out to Chris Nicewander.
Tim.
No, it's Chris.
Oh,
No, that's who he usually gets confused with. He got it
Chris.
right, and now you brought it up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I once again actively defending my ability to do this show. Chris Nicewander, who weaponized AI to birth our new theme song, F.U. Carl Hunnell. Yes, that's the name, and love was involved probably. We'll put a link in the notes. Bring your earplugs and a lawyer. Hey, thanks for watching this car crash as well on YouTube. And thanks for listening to the screams. And thanks for feeding the beast, you beautiful enablers. Don't change. We like you broken, like us. Our thanks also to the great folks at Relax It's Just Coffee for sponsoring this show and for being such a great partner to the Newsman Weekly. Every day just starts better with great coffee, and our friend Paul Kimmerling and his baristas at Relax simply have the best in town at 105 North Main Street in downtown Mansfield. Folks, we got a great show for you again today. It's going to be a bit different than you're used to. We don't have any mayors, county commissioners, or other elected officials and newsmakers.
Thank God.
Nope, today we're going outside the box just a little bit. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by an Heiser. I'm going to let you pronounce her name first.
Maddalena.
Maddalena. She's a Mansfield woman, an independent researcher and translator, exploring ancient Greek biblical texts through a poetic and Hellenic lens.
Good job.
Thank you. So stay tuned for
Bravo,
that.
Carl.
Yep. For now, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the news of the week, and we'll also revisit Hayden's favorite part of the show, What's Carl Watching?
What's Carl?
What's Carl watching?
Well, welcome back to the Newsman Weekly. I'm so glad you stuck around. All right, before we get to the news of the week, it's time for, What's Carl Watching?
What's Carl watching?
What's Carl watching?
Well, thank you for asking. This week, it's the chaotic Netflix series Free Bert.
Oh, boy.
Bert Kreischer, the shirtless, beer-swilling machine himself, tries to grow up when his kids get into a snobby Beverly Hills private school. He moves the family into Kale and Tesla land and vows to become a normal dad. Big mistake. He shows up to PTA meetings in tank tops, turns silent auctions into keg stands, mistakes gluten-free for a dare, and accidentally goes shirtless in yoga class. His wife facepalms hard while the kids swing between mortified and yet secretly thrilled. From botched Hollywood mom networking to epic dad fails, Bert's quest to fit in unleashes total anarchy. It's Curb Your Enthusiasm if Larry David was a 275-pound Florida party animal with zero chill. 6 episodes of cringe, chaos, and zero regrets. Stream before Bert tries to reform again. Good luck, bro. So big thumbs up for Free Bert on Netflix.
I did start it, and I was kind of like, I don't know, I'm a little burned out by Bert Kreischer and his whole bit, but I've heard good things.
Yep.
And 6 episodes, I might have to get back into it.
Definitely worth a watch. You'll see him try to grow beyond just the guy that takes his shirt off.
Okay.
It's funny. I forget the name of the actor, but he gets hired. No spoiler alert a little bit. Early on, he gets hired to perform at a birthday party for a famous actor.
Oh, Rob Lowe.
Rob Lowe.
Yeah, I did see that part.
Yeah.
I did see that
And
part.
apparently, the only thing Rob Lowe wanted to do is for Bert to take his shirt off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, even after the show, he's like, could you just take your shirt off?
Yeah.
And he's like, what? He goes, well, yeah, that's what's funny.
He felt
your whole
used
thing.
by it
Yeah,
and violated.
Yeah, and Bert's like that's that's not the comedy.
Right.
Yeah, but take your shirt off. So yeah.
It's just like when people you're just, Carl, just read the news.
Yeah.
Shut up and read the news.
Yeah. Or Carl, you know what? Just be grumpy on demand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which that's not hard.
That's not hard.
I mean, I could do that. I'm just naturally grumpy. But yeah.
Come on,
I get
newsman. Let's get to some news.
that. All right, let's get to some news. Hey, the last tenant has left the Mansfield Inn, much like Elvis has left the building. The final resident moved out Friday, according to the Mansfield-Richland County Homeless Response Team, which was on site Friday at the 800 Leva Road Motel. All tenants were ordered to vacate the property by Friday under a January 30th order from the Richland County Building Department that declared the structure unsafe. Richland County Commissioner Tony Vero said 15 former tenants have been temporarily placed in other local motels, while about 10 others have found housing on their own. Vero credited Wayfinder's Executive Director Miles Parsons, Catalyst Life Services social worker Angela Riley, and Mansfield Police Officer Matt Davis, the homeless response team, for helping residents leave and secure lodging elsewhere. Building Department Director Steve Risser also assisted with the effort. The motel manager, who had been living on site, was also required to leave. Vero says the owner, Paresh Patel of Barstow, California, asked if that manager could remain, but the answer from building officials was no. The homeless response team also worked with the Richland County Humane Society and an animal shelter in Marion to take care of the animals that had been at the property. Officials say no animals remained inside the building on Friday. A few strays were still being kind of rounded up outside by the Humane Society. The team will now focus on finding more permanent housing for the 15 people currently in temporary motel rooms. That effort's being funded with about $10,000 approved by the Wayfinders Board. Many of the residents had been living at the Mansfield Inn long-term, paying between $225 and $250 per week.
What a deal.
The investigation began after the Ohio State Fire Marshal's office contacted county officials about safety concerns. Around the same time, the Ohio EPA found the building had no running water and cited 6 violations related to safe drinking water. County officials said the building suffered structural damage, including cracking and failure of second-floor concrete balconies, walkways, and stairs. Water intrusion, ice buildup, and poor drainage were also cited as factors. Hayden, keep that in mind if you have any more problems with your gutters and downspouts.
Thank you, Carl. Noted.
Officials also noted a failure of the plumbing system, leaving the building without a water supply and unsanitary. Now, no one may occupy the motel until required structural repairs are made. We wrote multiple stories in the last couple of weeks about this saga. We'll put links to that coverage in the show notes. But all is quiet, or at least it was as of Friday, at the Mansfield Inn.
To clear things up, Carl, too, you probably have written about this possibly in one of your stories. I know Miles and Tony, when they were in here last week, had mentioned, hearing speculation about the power being shut off. Then there was speculation online whether that did or did not happen. Can you clear that up for all the people who do not know?
To the best of my knowledge, as long as there were people in the building, the power was not shut off.
Okay.
I did not hear anything about that. Now, if the last person's out, if they want to shut it down, turn off the grid. There's nobody there. I don't know if that's too wise for your pipes, but if you don't have running water, I guess maybe that's not a problem either.
Right.
Hey, guess what came back up in the news last week? Roundabout.
Oh.
We love a good roundabout in Richland County.
Showtime.
A long-planned roundabout. When I say long-planned, I first wrote about this 5 years ago.
Wow.
Okay, it's coming this spring and summer at the intersection of Lexington-Springmill and Home Roads. Richland County Commissioners approved a request from County Engineer Adam Gove to seek bids for the $3 million project, most of which is being paid for with state grant dollars. They'd already done a $591,000 design contract back in 2023 to EMH&T of Columbus. Gove says grant funding from ODOT and the Ohio Public Works Commission will cover about 90% of the cost. About $350,000 will come from local funds. Bids are going to be opened on March 12th. Construction will close the intersection for about 120 days and will also shut down the B&O Trail at that point for about 90 days. Detours will use US 42, Trimble Road, Park Avenue West, and as Mr. Gove told me, people who live around here know other ways to get around it. So there you have that, but that'll be the official detour. Gove shows studies show the intersection is the most dangerous in that Lexington to Ontario corridor. A 2021 study found 95 crashes in a 3-year period, many of them near intersections. The roundabout, which also includes 2 bridge replacements, must be finished by the end of October, according to the contract. Gove called it the safest and most effective solution for that corridor's most accident-prone intersection. Did a story about it Thursday, and there's a link to that coverage in the show notes as well.
Communist Adam Gove.
Well, no, you can't call it communist because you're going counterclockwise. You're going right.
Oh, okay. All right.
Conservative Adam Gove.
Yes.
There's no left turns on the roundabout. Well, there could be, but that'd be wrong.
I didn't know roundabouts were so political, but they are.
I mean, it doesn't matter how much research you show to people, how much you talk about it.
Right.
As soon as they see the word roundabout, their head explodes.
All that money. It's just to make
a circle.
And then I see people, well, why aren't you doing it at Hanley Road in Lake Spring?
Now they want more roundabouts.
Well, they want something there. But the problem is that particular Hanley Road in Lex Spring Mill is in the village of Lexington. I think they'd like to do something, but that's going to require the village to be an active participant in the funding of it. And I don't think Mayor Bob Jarvis and Village Council in Lexington are ready to pony that up.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, they're doing this because this is the most dangerous intersection statistically.
Yeah,
almost 30-some per year.
When you look at the traffic, the survey, the traffic studies they've done, it's not because it necessarily has the longest waits. It's because this is where the most accidents. And oh, by the way, there was a roundabout built a few years ago at a very dangerous intersection, Cook Road, Illinois Avenue, where it intersects Mansfield Lucas Road.
I drive it frequently.
Yeah. And guess what happened? The number of serious accidents.
Right.
I drive that one frequently, and
it works just fine, folks.
They really do work.
Every once in a while, you'll have that person that stops, and it's slightly annoying, and you have to be paying attention
it's
because maybe
dying in a car.
Correct. They're not used to driving through it, maybe, but
Well,
you get used to it.
The other part of the problem was people speed on Lexington-Springmill, especially down the hill toward Lexington.
Right.
Yeah.
When they started looking at this a few years ago, they put out a monitor to track people's speed. It's like 70, 75, 80.
Jeez.
Folks, if you're hauling Tookus down that hill that fast, you're in deep doo-doo anyway.
Right.
Because that's what causes accidents. Because people come to an intersection, they look to their right, oh, that car's right there, I can turn, not realizing you're flying like a bat out of hell. Mm-hmm. That's what leads to accidents, and those are T-bone accidents. Yeah. Those are the ones that result in serious injuries and maybe even fatalities, and they've had a couple of those there.
Death before roundabouts, Carl.
That's right. Anyway, so roundabouts going. Oh no! By the way, ODOT's building 2 or 3 more in the county in the next few years. So
good.
You can yell and scream at ODOT. All right. A high-speed chase 5 months ago has led to the 7th gang-related conviction for the Richland County Prosecutor's Office. 32-year-old Kenneth Jackson Jr. of Mansfield pleaded guilty in Richland County Common Pleas Court to participating in a criminal gang, tampering with evidence, and possession of cocaine. Judge Brent Robinson sentenced him to 4.5 years in prison as part of a plea agreement. Other charges in that indictment were dropped as part of that. Prosecutor Jody Schumacher praised the Mansfield Police Department and its community action team led by Lieutenant Ryan Grimshaw. Police say Jackson was a passenger in a car that led officers on a high-speed chase through the city. The car was stopped because police knew Jackson was in it, and that's who they wanted to talk to. During the pursuit, Jackson threw crack cocaine and a handgun out the window as they sailed along. Officers also used Jackson's own rap lyrics, recorded under the name Gaddy Grams, as part of their investigation. Yes, they transcribed an entire album of his work. Police say Jackson is the 3rd member of his gang, convicted under Ohio's criminal gang law, which adds a second-degree felony to related charges. When you make a rap album that teases the police to come get you,
it's just art.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
What happened to the First Amendment?
Well, he was not convicted of bad lyrics or bad rapping. Okay. Officials credit the gang statute and the CAT team's work for helping reduce violent crime in the city. So anything else about that?
Well, he happened to be also guilty of gang-related activities, but not all rappers that rap about gang-related activities are gang members. I just want to clear that up.
Yeah, well, this guy certainly was. So good luck or good work by the police department to bring that one to justice. All right, that's enough for now. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Maddalena.
Yes.
So please stay with us. Well, welcome back to the Newsman Weekly. Joining us now, promised, is Maddalena, an independent researcher and translator taking a fresh look at ancient Greek biblical text through a poetic and Hellenic lens. A mother of 4 here in Mansfield, she spent the last year re-examining New Testament language, mythology, and esoteric symbolism. Her work blends textual study, spirituality, and personal experience, all in an effort to reinterpret familiar scriptures in new and unexpected ways. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for getting up so damn early.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, where are you from? And
I graduated from Ashland, and then I've been in Mansfield probably for the last 7 years. I grew up in a missionary focused home, so did a lot of traveling in early life, went to Bible college for a year, etc., and then came back to Ohio, had kids, got into art and music, and that's kind of where I found myself, and did a yoga training, kind of got into some occult stuff, poetry, and just kind of pursued a eccentric life, also being a mother. And so, I started re-looking at the Bible out of interest of how could I find the most deep meaning of Scripture, and especially, having read and memorized lots of portions of Scripture in my teen years, I was like, okay, well, now I have this more esoteric or different worldview now. I wonder what the Bible looks like through that lens. But then I thought, well, what would it look like if I read it in the original language, which many signs are pointing is ancient Greek. It's like the earliest text that we have, and there's a lot of contemporary literature to reference what different words mean. So I kind of got into rabbit holes that way out of just interest in studying the book of Matthew.
Nice. That's a great background. And so, yeah, full disclosure, I'm the one that wanted to bring you on this podcast because I've been kind of following your work on Instagram and just find it really interesting. As someone also grew up in a Christian household, went to a liberal arts Christian college, and really since then I've been kind of finding myself deconstructing Christianity and just taken more of an interest in like mystical teachings and stuff, but still rooted in Christianity. And so I definitely am like drawn to the stuff you're doing, but it's not always the easiest thing to like understand, but I think that's why I'm interested and I want to learn more. And I want to just let our listeners out there know that I'm not trying to have a debate or anything. None of us are ancient Greek cultural or language experts. So
well,
we're going to
speak for yourself.
Well, speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure I can make that assumption. So and our listeners might find this. I mean, you come from all different sort of religious or spiritual backgrounds. So I would encourage you guys to listen with an open mind on this stuff.
I just call myself an obscure researcher. Right. I'm no scholar. I'm still a student. And so having the willingness to explore and look for myself has been very enlightening of a process.
So what's the difference between your work, and this is probably, obviously there's a lot of differences, but just to break it down simply, between your work and like traditional biblical scholarship?
So traditional biblical scholarships, I'm sure that you'll find like some Greek courses, etc., but a lot of the Bible and its translation and like theology, they look to the Bible itself for its meaning like using Strong's Concordance and using different words that are already mentioned in the Bible to compare what different words mean. So in no other settings, whether it's scientific or in literature or, are we looking at texts that only refer to itself, or like you wouldn't go explore something and then use yourself as a reference, right? So instead of doing that, I started plugging in Greek words into actual lexicons using University of Chicago's lexicon or the LSJ, or there's a bunch of different resources that have just thousands of books and texts that you can refer to, whereas if you're just looking at the Bible itself, it's very closed. And I understand that there's different departments that kind of keep to themselves, but being able to blend in like science and medicine with linguistics and philology and mythology and history. And there's just a lot of angles to take in. And when we consider the Bible being immersed in a culture that has this whole world outside of itself, then kind of a whole wormhole happens where, it's just a whole portal that you can go into. And and that makes total sense, because like when you kind of grow up in the church, like it is just like reading out of scripture. It's not looking at the cultural lens, right? And
that a lot of these stories came out of,
right? Yeah, there are different. I found there are different layers to it, where we have the English translation, and I was applying a more esoteric, like what's the symbolism on top of that? Where could I find some deeper rooted meaning? But I found it was adding onto what had already been mistranslated, essentially. So
and it just gets even more convoluted.
Exactly. So how can we peel back those layers and look at what it said originally? And I found that I didn't expect for it to be this way, but the Greek language is so far greater because it has just so many words. There's like 1.7 unique word forms, and you'll take, like, for example, the word logos has its definition is 8 pages long, and the word there's like 24 different words for the word the. And just like it's just so complex and so great, and there's so many ancient texts to refer to that it's just you can't read it all in one's lifetime. And so I'm glad to begin building resources to refer to when I'm translating the Bible. So
So I know when I was growing up, I was raised Southern Baptist. After I got married, I became Roman Catholic. That means I've got enough guilt for everybody in the room. So any of you listening, calm down. I've got this for you. One of the things we had to do when I was growing up, and as you guys probably experienced in a good Southern Baptist Sunday school class, you had to memorize Bible verses. And then when you came to Sunday school, you had to recite them. And I quickly learned, being the scofflaw that I was at a young age, the shortest verse in the Bible is 2 words.
Jesus wept.
Jesus wept. And I use that as often as I could. But when it comes to when you start doing translation, what do you do with short things and just little pieces like that? Or do those things even matter when you're looking at the bigger overall picture?
I mean, sometimes they do matter. What I'm doing is kind of looking at what is the narrative that we're all given, and how is that narrative in the original text different? And I think it comes down to understanding history, understanding what had been written and what was happening culturally. That isn't really taken into consideration when translating the Bible. For example, mystery cults were a big part that was connected into everyday life, connected to our understanding of education and politics and law and just a part of everyone's collective life for so many years, for centuries, that it's unfair that we are stripped from that knowledge through the Bible, because it's okay, I didn't see it for myself until really diving into the Greek. And once translating so many things, I realized, oh man, there is a narrative that has been purposefully erased. And if we are believing that this is some divine word, that it's scripture, and that people are really believing, the story, but that the true story is being stripped away, I think that it makes me angry, and it makes me want to explore it even deeper, because everyone deserves to know what it actually says. And I started that with the verse, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." That was one of the first verses that I translated. And the word for repent is metanoia. It means to make a change to your perception. And so that is a common thread throughout the Bible, where you see people making changes to their perception, applying things to their eyes, that your eyes may be open. And so that has been one rabbit hole to follow. And so the rest of the verse says, "For the kingdom of heaven is at hand." Well, the word for kingdom is basileia, and that's feminine. So it's queendom. It's the domain of a queen, of a monarch. And who is the queen of heaven at the time of Jesus? It's Isis, it's Aphrodite, it's, all these corresponding feminine goddess deities that have been erased from the text. And seeing it for myself and being whoa, so what were happening in these mystery cults that are innately sexual in nature, there's just thousands of years of text and of various genres. We have the mythology, but there's comedy, there's satire, there's tragedy, but there's also history, there's philosophy, and we have all that to look back and see, the underlying threads of what it was like in society. Because the Greek language stretched from Asia to Spain. It wasn't a cultural thing, it was a language thing. So
it was like the English language today, right? It was the predominant, you could speak other languages, but you'd probably talk in Greek like if you, I don't
Exactly.
know, like as a shared common like language interest.
Yeah.
Hence the expression, it's all Greek to me.
Yes,
go.
exactly. So it is kind of mixing in an encoded language, essentially. So it has been, there's a guy named Otto Kern
Okay.
who he was a classicist, and he kind of coined this term Orphic Vox, which is kind of this mythical underlying language within the Greek language, and you can see strains of that within the Bible. And so it's like even understanding, okay, what is a dracaina? What's a dragon? A dragon is a temple guardian. A class of a temple guardian were Medusae, was where we get the snake venom or snake hair. These temple guardians would use snake venoms, etc. So even just a simple word as that will lead you down a whole path. For example, like another word is beast. A beast is a drug that it is also seen as as the word like theriac. And there we have like a physician, Galen, who wrote a whole book on what a theriac is, and it basically is an older version of a vaccine, or and it's basically a whole potion that people created to bring healing and through the use of snake venoms. And so the oldest, looking back and through the mix of pharmacology and medicine with history, then we see, okay, what is the oldest, description of the use of these venoms? What's the oldest description of, the beast, etc. And that is Medea, and she was Bronze Age mythology, but she's also a historical person, which can be disputed, obviously.
Bronze Age was the time of Christ, right?
No, Bronze Age was
that
like
before?
1200-ish BC.
Okay.
So like 12 centuries before
Okay.
Christ.
Okay.
And so the first description of the word Christ, Christos, it's one who applies a medicinal salve or oil or dye. And the first description of using Christ as a verb, chrio, is in Homer when he's describing Aphrodite's ambrosial oils and applying them. And so it's like, why are they using these,
Right, that's
these
interesting.
dyes? And then in the Bible, we see the same words being used, the same language being used to open their eyes and enter into, in these mystery cults that happened, in antiquity. They are doing these same things, and it describes, priestesses applying these venoms, applying, anything that gives an altered state of mind to receive visions. And that is how, we forget the political and social control that these oracles, who were children, essentially, they were young girls doing these things. They are the ones who decided and who had the authority, essentially, over society. Like politicians and emperors would seek and consult them for major decisions all through history. And so when that changed, then everything shifted and became inverted. So just seeing like the same language being used, etc., is really cool. For example, the verse, for God so loved the world that he gave his only
John
son.
3:16.
John 3:16 is such a popular verse. Well, it says, for God so loved the cosmos. The cosmos in, Stoic philosophy, etc., was a concept used to describe the inner mind and the inner world within the mind. So it also says that you won't receive eternal life. That word is eidios, and that's not the word that's used in John 3:16. The word is ionic, and the ion is very specific to describe coming out of the time stream, outside of space-time. And so we see that in those mystery cults and texts about, what Medea is doing, and, in poetry, etc. There's just so many references to ion, and ion actually was the center of, like, depicted in synagogues as being the center, surrounded by the zodiac. And the zodiac is also a Greek word. And but who is Ion? Ion is what we would know as Yahweh, or Yahoo, as Dr. Hellman calls him.
Okay.
But
it's not Yahoo like we used to use in the internet days when you went to Yahoo to look stuff up.
No, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
But that still is a later concept.
Right.
And
this is the Hebrew god Yahweh,
yes,
right?
and which was a storm deity that became the
And
primary.
very angry god.
Yes, he's the jealous god. He's the. I mean, he's. So this is another rabbit hole where you look at Genesis and the serpent, who is bringing knowledge, is questioning Eve, and Eve in the common narrative gets demonized. But we know the serpent, the Dukaina, is a temple guardian. They're performing these rites. Her eyes are being opened by eating the fruit, and God is angry. And it's like he's lying to her. And why would a God that supposedly has foresight behave in such a way? So I don't know. It's like really opening the portal, essentially, to looking at these in a different way. Cain by Lord Byron is a poem that kind of takes this narrative, describing the serpent as being Lucifer, the one who enlightens, and so I think it's crazy, because then, okay, well, Satan is the one that gets demonized. Who is Satan? And so I've been kind of wondering, who's Satan? It's Saturn, it's Kronos. Kronos is time. Ion is time. So escaping time, the grasp of that rule, whether it's, in a more metaphysical sense of being an entity, that can be sacrificed to, that, will grant you prosperity, essentially, or, however you view it. It is really wild to see the narrative flip.
Yeah.
And I still I've been just mind blown looking at all of these things, and specifically Jesus and who he was.
Yeah, and I want to get to that, but I was just thinking about the translations, and I think maybe some people are wondering, but we're talking a lot about the Greek translations, but and I wondered, wasn't the New Testament originally written in Aramaic, or is that kind of up for debate?
No.
Okay.
So there are 700 unique words in Aramaic.
Okay, that's not many.
No. And in ancient Hebrew, there's 6,000 to 7,000. And these are flattened, condensed words that have no other literature. There are no libraries in Hebrew. There's no other literature of any other genre, because they do not exist. Even, which is crazy to think about, but even the only things that exist are a couple silver tablets that have been recently found to be fake, or in Phoenician, which is a proto language. So that is Greek, essentially. And so Hebrew doesn't have any of these other genres, and there's nothing to refer to, but also histories were extremely documented in 4th century BC, 6th century, 5th, and documenting all these different types of groups of people that are living in the area where Hebrews would be. But there is no mention of the word Hebrew, no mention of Judea, no mention of Israel existing at all in any sources at all until the sudden consolidated collection of the Septuagint that dropped in 320 BC.
Was that like Constantine when he kind of made? Was that around?
No, that was later on.
Okay.
But so before Jesus, the earliest Septuagint text is 300 BC. So it's like, okay, what? There's nothing else to refer to when it comes to Hebrew, and that's just like mind blowing to me, because when I approach this, I'm approaching it from I'm studying it from the point of view as if it were originally written in Greek. But also I'm open to being wrong, right?
Sure.
I'm open to, being disproven or, being shown in texts like, maybe this is not correct. But for now, as I'm studying Greek, I'm focusing, that is my focus, for now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's been wild just to see. I think also understanding those mystery cults and what they were doing paints the whole picture, because when I translated the Transfiguration, Jesus goes up the mountain, and the mountain that I guess he supposedly went up is Mount Hermon. Well, what is at the top of Mount Hermon during the time of Jesus? It's a grotto to Pan.
Wait, it's a what?
It's a grotto to Pan.
Oh.
At the top, and there's an altar, and there are even ruins that describe, don't sacrifice to pigs here.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's actually, there's a cave there, and there's a waterfall, and it says that they call it the gates of hell, actually.
Oh, wow.
So he, at the top of the mountain, in the translation, he basically is invoking Helios, and Helios is the god of the sun. And it's like, really, you're using the same words, and we're just translating it as he was shiny like the sun.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
how flattened and condensed is that when he had resplendent limbs invoking Helios, and and I don't know. It's just like really a lot more complex than what we're given. It's
and like
beautiful
wonderful
and poetic
and amazing
too.
than just like he was shiny like the sun,
Uh-huh.
I always thought the gates of hell was like above the archway when you go in the old Brown Stadium. Anyway, but all right, there's such a change in tone and purpose between the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
Yeah.
the Old Testament is fire and brimstone. Go kill an animal or you're going to hell kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
New Testament is, believe in Jesus, have everlasting life. From your studies and your look at Greek, what changed between the time of the Old Testament and the New Testament that led to this complete change of tone?
Well, I think we have to take into consideration the fact that there are many books that aren't included in the Bible. And when you look at the apocryphal texts, which the word apocrypha means hidden or secret, there's a reason for them doing so. And the Old Testament is there's the book of Job, and is, I guess, the oldest book in the Old Testament.
Job's my favorite character from the Bible, by the way. I mean, the guy just suffered so much, and I relate to Job in so many ways. Every time I got to work with Hayden, I feel like, like a journalism Job.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. You're welcome.
But the tone does change to the New Testament, and I think it's because, we have a 400-year gap. Essentially between those, when the Septuagint was written and the New Testament. But also, what are the people in the New Testament, Paul and other authors? What are they referencing? They reference the Septuagint. They don't reference Hebrew. they don't, they're not referencing Aramaic, they're referencing Greek texts. And also Paul quotes Medea, and so it's like, okay, they had an education, they understood, philosophers then. And so I've really been studying mostly the book of Matthew, and also what Jesus was doing. And there is a lot that just has been erased. For example, there's a war between the prophets and a priesthood that is underlying, and there is the Hellenic priesthood. It is a worship of the snake goddess and using the snakes. And we see that when Paul gets bit by the snake and he doesn't die. And we see when John the Baptist says, "You brood of vipers," well, he's talking to the people that are doing the same thing that he was, which is baptizing. And what is baptizing? It is dipping one with these essentially drugs or medicinal salves in order to receive enlightenment. When Jesus goes to be baptized, his whole portal basically opens, and Uranos, who is is heaven, but it's also a personified deity in Greek mythology, Uranos and Gaia, heaven and earth. And we see like that's text specifically with John the Baptist is crazy, because people are mad or going out to John the Baptist and they say, "Oh, he's just in the wilderness. He's eating, locusts and honey." And when I translated it, I thought it probably is not different from, the English. Well, it says that he was on the outskirts of the town and that he was wearing this girdle. It says, it translates in English to waist, but it's around his loins. And it says that he was swollen, breeding, and as like locusts, with pleasure as like honey. And so you see what was missing on purpose,
right?
And so why would people be going out to be receiving his essences? And what was John the Baptist brought up in? Well, Elizabeth and Mary were brought up as priestesses. And Mary, there's text talking about her spinning this purple thread. And so what is it that is reoccurring with the color purple that is in all these texts and in antiquity? Well, there's a part of that theriac, the beast, is this potion that could be applied to your eyes. But also in the priesthood, these children were brought up but being exposed to snakes. So they ended up being essentially like factories for antidotes to snake venoms that would bring you back to life, essentially, after you had this death rebirth. Because in all of these mystery cults and all of this culture that was very ingrained in society, it was all about death rebirth. It was all about bringing yourself into a state of death that would take you and launch you outside of time, and then be brought back. And that was the born again experience. This is the first description of a sotera, is that process, those same substances being used in midwifery. A sotera is a savior. So it's like, oh man, like how all these paths are crossing. How can we make sense of it? What can we do about it? Because if these things are true, I mean, then it's wild. And so the shocker or the gateway into really seeing who Jesus was is Mark 14:51-52, which is like the keyhole. It is the key to shocking you into looking into what these texts say. And it says Jesus was arrested in a public park with a naked kid.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, at 4 a.m. saying, I'm not a child trafficker, but then getting executed as one because you don't execute thieves in that society. And he was, So, but then you see how the purple kind of ties into it, because this purple was, it's extinct now, but it was extracted from these sea mollusks and used in this potion essentially. And it's like following the thread of that trade system, and also seeing how the children were a part of this process of trafficking essentially. So
that's an ancient Greek cultural thing that is just
lost,
like
essentially.
Completely. I mean, like pedophilia and everything. There was some sort of norm around that at the time, but obviously it's not. No one's trying to bring that back. Yeah,
and so people have been, cutting this specific verse to pieces. I went to church probably like a year ago, and the one day that I went, because I was just going to support family, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was on that specific area in Mark
14.
The end of Mark 14, and those two verses were skipped over because it was a whole in-depth study of the book of Mark, and I was like, you better talk about what this is, because it's so important, at least to me, and it was skipped over. And it's like, okay, so to break that down, I mean, so we have a library. I want to put this out there. There's a library. It's called Hypatia Gnostikoi, and we call it the Soma Library. And it consolidates all of this information. And I've been working with a group of people that are transcribing and following the work of Dr. Amin Hellman, who has been more outspoken about this stuff. But also, he sounds wild. He sounds like people are saying, oh, he's crazy, he's possessed, he's like on drugs, whatever. But no, nothing he's saying can be disproven. Nobody wants to debate what he's saying, because it puts their jobs at a place of risk. It puts, it challenges their belief system. I mean, you have, your money tied into it, whatever it is. It's like, to challenge religion, which has such a control on society, is crazy for most people. And but that's, I think, where a lot of, and I think change needs to happen, because if we've been lied to about the narrative about who Jesus is, and if what is coming up is true, then that means that the root of all Abrahamic religion is Saturnian.
Satanic.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense why then it's like anybody who's pagan is being labeled as satanic, and it's like, outward projection, right? When the narrative is flipped or confused and diluted, essentially. So anyway, the library talks about everything. It talks about Medea, talks about all the biblical stuff. My focus is the biblical stuff. Other people are more focused on the plant medicine side of things. Other people are researching just all sorts of different texts that use the same language, and so it's been an honor to be a part of this.
Yeah, and that you can send me the link to that. We'll put a link to that library in the show notes if anyone wants to go browse.
Sure. So, back to what you were saying about Aramaic, though, did Jesus speak Aramaic? And the only reason, I think there's maybe 3 words in the whole Bible that are considered Aramaic. One of them, to prove that Jesus spoke Aramaic, is the word lama, when Jesus is on the cross saying, Hele, hele, lama sabachthani. And what is being now researched and challenged is, well, people didn't know what he said when he was on the cross. And what it says in Matthew is different when it says in Mark. But this word lama and lemma mean will or purpose in Greek. If you split that word in half, the word le means to speak, and ma, it denotes the effect of the action, the verb. So it's just Greek right there, right? But it's also a word that is used that's similar to what it sounds like in Aramaic and Hebrew. So that's one that they pointed out and said, that must be Aramaic. But what's crazy is that in Mark, where it says Eloi, it is phonically identical to the word Eua. And Eua is this Bacchic shout. And if anybody heard something close to that being shouted, it was this ecstatic, horrific, like, battle cry that has been, a part of ritual, and in the Greek magical papyri, and so if we see Jesus as the point of view of him being a magician or some sort of wizard and practicing as if he were in a mystery cult creating his own, and that would track.
Okay.
And so Heli, the other translation in Matthew, is referencing Helios again, Heli. And then the word sabachthani is cool because Saba, I thought it meant your Bacchus has died, because Sa means your, Bach, it references Bacchus. Oftentimes if you hear Bach, it is connected to Dionysus. And Thon is a word that means death. So I thought he was saying your Bacchus has died. But really, what other people have found is that Sabaoth is a deity that is correspondent with Jehovah and with Yahweh. And Chthoni is a word to reference the chthonic mother, or the goddess of the earth, for example, Hipta or Gaia. And these were, in these rites, you see people spiritually descending to the underworld, essentially, like having, if you look at Inanna, she descends through these gates into the underworld and comes back. And so that is a repeated story that goes by many names. Mm-hmm. And so to see that is just wild. But here, I have it here. Let's see.
And this is what Jesus said on the cross, right? This
yes,
is the
what Jesus said
at.
on the cross. And I've been looking at that for quite a while, but there's just still so much information that is coming from other people too, mm-hmm. like taking a new look or finding, for example, the Codex Vaticanus is the earliest text that we have of what Jesus said on the cross, and it uses the words za with a dz like sound, zaf, zaba, mm-hmm. Zabaxphone. And that essentially the phone is the vocalization as well. So it's really cool. I'm going to find where this is real quick. So, some people in the library have been breaking this down, and I love it. There's this text that's by Hipta, or describing Hipta. It's Hipta's hymn, in number 49 from Proclus. And it says, I call upon Hippa, the nurse of Bacchus, and the word for Bacchus is Bahu in that text. But then it also describes, it says, the one who cries the Ewa cry, the ecstatic shout, the one who serves among initiates and rejoices in the rites of purified Sabah. That same word that's used and sabaksan, sabao. And then in this poem it says, "Hear me as I perform my rite, O chthonic mother," which is chthoni. And so here it says, it literally is the maiden of the Ewa cry. And that is also Ewa. Eowatso is the name of Eve, who brings life. So it's a life-bringing cry.
Right.
So that also, is really cool. So it's not just a saying. It's kind of connected to ancient magical text, and it's also connected to ancient mystery.
Gotcha. So there's like actually not just a saying, but there's power in what he's saying.
Yeah. So when people hear Saba, they in the ancient world, they immediately go back to remembering trance, remembering ecstatic shaking, and like, kind of in churches have that, and and it's kind of like the what's the word I'm looking for? Hints of what came before,
Gotcha.
And it hints to, the true roots of what these inverted rites were replicating. Yeah. So I think it's just really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's also fascinating and still very mysterious to me. And I mean, we could go on talking about this forever, but I do want to ask one last question. I think then we're going to be at time. But you mentioned when we were talking before about, you like to talk about how ancient history and knowledge of the Bible unlock the probability of time travel.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about that.
So through studying Medea, she is the one who created the very first mystery. So not only is she the first person who invented pre-Hippocratic medicine and was the first documented person to use magic, projecting her force or energy, and it creating a reality on its own that saved some sailors in the text, but she also created her essentially had a knowledge that was so great of at a higher technology, like with a higher technology that far exceeds modern medicine. And it's like, how do people understand the spirit of the plant at that level? So she figured out a way to use her own body to create antidotes and bring other people into through consuming her fluids, essentially, and her blood and her flesh. That's why in the Bible it describes, "Eat my flesh, drink," or drink my blood.
Yeah,
that is
Eucharist.
Connected to that Hellenic priesthood, where they would essentially do that, and because of the exposure to altered chemicals and substances, it would launch them into this realm outside of time and space. So I feel like that is something that perhaps there's a reason that some of the stuff is coming out with the files, and perhaps that they were trying to explore doing similar thing.
Like the Epstein files?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And, well, I mean, I'm that's just my own
right.
opinion. But, I think that if we ever find a moral or ethical way to recreate the mystery, because there's been prophecies that describe the mystery being revived, then people will be brought into either into a death state where they come to realize like their oneness with all that is, and be brought back, or we could use substances like that are safer to have sort of ecstatic
like psychedelics,
and but if we can use for example in this mystery, right, they combined plant medicine, these poisons, right, and sound, and it was the sound of the priestess or in the music, and the strings of Apollo that would essentially possess the individual, and or the oracle, or it would rip them out of their bodies essentially. And so if we can find a way to do that, that would probably unlock a lot of things when it comes to using the brain to travel outside of space-time, if you can reach that in that realm. So that's my own
cool.
experimentation. So I've been studying how can we do that through meditation, through through visualization, and that connects you to magical practices.
Right.
And so Dr. Hillman, I'm honored to be his student, and I've been chosen to be his guinea pig and helping him do his magnum opus, which is really cool. And if it weren't for his putting himself out there to talk and teach these things for free, then I felt just extremely aligned in what he was doing and his background and what I was already doing.
Right.
And so I'm excited to...
That's awesome that you guys can collaborate.
Yeah, for sure. And so thank you.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we are going to wrap up today's show on that note. Many thanks to Maddalena for joining us today.
Thank you.
Many interesting ideas and research.
Next time you take communion, Carl, you need to be meditating on time travel.
Yeah, just traveling from the back of the church up to the front. That's time travel for me. You get to be my age, that's a long walk. Folks, the beauty of all this in this country is we have a freedom of religion. You can agree, disagree. We should welcome all perspectives and ideas. The marketplace of ideas should always be open. Do your own research, make your own decisions, believe in what you choose. But for now, thanks again to all of you for listening to the Newsman Weekly. I'll be back in a second to put a bow on this week's episode, but until then, remember what author Mark Twain once said: if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.